This is my 2003 Ford Focus. These cars are, if you look on the internet, they are pretty infamous for having problems with the ignition cylinder over here, where it gets to the point where it will not turn. Part of that is due to bad design. Part of it may be due to the fact that I have a ton of keys on my key ring at any given time, weighing it down and wearing the lock cylinder out. So that's what this is meant to address, is meant to fix. First things first, you got to get this panel off from the underside, where the parking brake and the fuses are at. There are 4 bolts that hold it on, one down in that corner, one here which is still attached, and one down there at the very back. They are just 8mm socket you'll need for that to take those off. 4 of them. Like I said, the fuse and the parking brake are still attached, so I've just been letting them hang while I've been working. The other part is the plastic shroud that goes up underneath that I don't have handy right now. I don't have handy with me right now, but it's the part that mates with this top piece here. That is held on with 3 little machine screws. They are let's see, what is this? A T20 Torx bit, and 2 of them are pretty easy to find. They are on either side of the steering column. One about right here, and then one over here on this side, about right there, I think. Let's see, you can't see my finger. There it is. The other one is way back here. It's way back here, and that's the reason why you have to take the fuse this down. I couldn't get to it without the other panel being off, but that's where your 3rd screw is at for this panel that goes up underneath the steering column. Once that's off, to get the cylinder out, you need to get the transponder ring off. Which actually, now that I'm looking at it, you don't. You can access everything you need to access with it still being on, but it was kind of handy getting it out of the way. But anyway, on the back side here, let's see if I can turn it to where you can see it, but back here, there's a screw hole, which I'll pull it off so you can see it a little bit easier. Yeah, right there is a screw hole. And it's a single gold screw, you can see here, and that is also a T20. So I just used a ratchet to get that off, and that just kind of gets it out of the way. The big thing I've seen people talk about having trouble with is getting the cylinder out, and there's a little pop-up pin right here in this hole. That's what keeps the cylinder in, and that I found was not too hard to deal with. Oh, the other big thing is you've got to be able to turn your key. Before you fix it, you got to be able to turn it to the on position, your accessory on position, or yeah, your on position. So if it won't turn at all, you're gonna have to drill it, which is a real pain. But if you're just like mine, where you can still get it every now and then to work, if you have to, leave the key in it, you know. But I was able to get mine to turn to the on position. Like I said, now it's fixed, so it doesn't really matter. But I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. Turn it to the on position. You'll still have to do that to get the cylinder out, because it's still physically locked in there unless you can do this. I'm going to set the tripod on my lap and see if I can manage this, because you really need 2 hands with this. Now I'm using just a punch. I found that to be the easiest. It's nice and sturdy, and it's just the right size to go in this hole. What's that? Just give it now. What I did was push the key in a little bit. That takes a little bit of the pressure off of that pin, and then just push this whole housing in a little bit. There you go. Then you're able to push that in, wiggle that out. There you go. Pull straight out, and you see what it's doing here. That's just a little tapered pin that pops into that hole to keep it keep it in there. Okay, now we've got the ignition cylinder out. We're going to do an attempt to take the tumblers out and see if it still works. First step says is take this ring off of the backside, and apparently it's kind of a pain, so we'll see how long that takes. So, finally got this locking pin off, or locking washer, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, finally got it off, and as you can tell, it was a struggle. It extracted its pound of flesh. It is very tight and pretty tough, and I'm sure there's a tool out there. I'm sure there's probably an easier way of doing it than I did it. If so, reply in the comments to help the next person. But what I ended up doing that was successful, as you can see, it kind of clips on, let's see, this way, and these jaws lock in here, these little slots. So what I was able to do, I'll just try to not putting it back on there. I was able to take these pliers, just kind of take one jaw and grab on one of those posts, and the other side grab on the back of the cylinder, basically pry it open. I was trying to pry it open, but what it did was it slid the whole thing around, where this jaw, or this side of the jaw, slid out of the little slot. So the other one was still engaged, but it's only had one of them in the slot, so it loosened up where I could jiggle it around. And from that point, all I had to do was just kind of pry and work it from side to side, and it popped up. And we'll see how easy it is to get back on later. But that's that part. So now, the instructions say you need to remove the lock cylinder and gut it. So I'm going to take my key out, pull this out, and that's what the lock cylinder itself looks like. You're seeing this little metal hood, which that seems to, that appears to be what it looks like. Instructions I got off of a forum post are a little vague. It has a stamped metal hood that all the pins are underneath it. This looks like stamped metal. And the rest of this is cast. So we'll see what I can do here. See if I'm still on the camera. There we go. Oh yeah, there we go. All the pins and all the springs. Here's a moment of truth. This doesn't work, and I've just screwed up my only working lock cylinder. But there goes all the springs. And we just tap, 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 get all this out of there. Just tap, tap, tap. Alright, finally got that last lock cylinder out of there. It was stubborn and kind of got stuck there. Bottom, I used a nail file. I stuck it down in there and kept wiggling around until it got lower and lower, and then I was able to pop it out on the table. So that does it. Now, just to put it back together, I can go out and reinstall and test. Now I get this clip, get this stupid clip back on. I hate this clip. Alright. I'm about halfway there right now. You can see this is about how I got it off. It is by twisting it. I was not able to pull it straight off. So I twisted it and pulled it off. So now I pushed it back down, which is still kind of hard to get there. You have to stretch it a little bit. And I used these just kind of, these coaxial crimpers to get in there and kind of wedge it open just enough to, I could pop that little tooth over the edge. And now I'm going to attempt to get it straightened back out again and clipped into place. You see the way it's oriented. It's got to turn counterclockwise to get into the correct position, but this is the easiest way to get it down to where it needs to be. I couldn't find a way to pop it on either way without whatever tool it needs. But basically there's a little catch right there, and a catch right there, and a catch right there. I'll take this one and kind of slide it over that corner, and then you're able to wiggle it down and you'll see it's where it's at, where it needs to be. This needs to be lined up here. So the next step is to turn it. Okay, I'm back. It's all done. I ended up not using the crimpers to spread this clip back open. I ended up using these pliers I've got. I'm sure, you know, like channel locks or something would work for this too. But basically ended up just using one jaw of the clamp to the pliers to grab this jaw, and then like grabbing this ridge right here that's on the outer casing, and it's using that to, not only pulls it in the right direction, but also pulls the jaws open a little bit. So it's actually the easiest part so far of getting this thing on and off. So I also mentioned that because that spring clip on the lock cylinder is not sprung anymore, that this outer housing spins freely. So it's very handy when you're trying to get this thing back on to have a screwdriver, like a stubby screwdriver, to jam in that hole to keep it from spinning on you while you're trying to get this on there. I mean, you can use your key, but I found out I was putting a fair amount of torque on it, so I didn't want to risk damaging the key for what it's worth now. Alright, now the fun part. Because that spring, because it's going and now the cylinder rotates on its own, you have to manually align this with the same shape that's inside the housing. You'll see it in there. If you can get a clear shot of that D shape. It just means I need to get that aligned as well as aligning that locking pin for the outer housing at the same time. So I'm going to try to do that with one hand while I'm shooting. Here we go. Here's a good spot. Alright, now I've got that lined up with that hole pretty nicely. But this is not lined up anymore. So I just need to line that up and push until it clicks into position. There we go. It's now in position. And just as a test, I'll show you that it works. If I can find my key sitting on it, on my fat butt. Yeah, let's see right here. See, I got the transponder ring back around it right now because the transponder is still active. And then one thing you do have to do that I wasn't prepared for, that I guess some of the springs inside do have to be a little bit more aggressive about pushing it in. But you can see the accessories come on, my radio is on, and cranks just fine, no issues. Like I said, the only downside of this is, you know, now the transponder is the only thing keeping the ignition from turning on if somebody gets in your car. But like I said, I'm not too concerned with that, with the age of this car. And okay, now we got it all back together. I've got all the pieces back where they belong, except for that one, because it's got some clips in the back that are really annoying and don't want to pop in, but I don't care about that at the moment. Pieces are where they belong and they're not going anywhere. And most importantly, this happens every time. Oh no, look, the steering wheel lock is engaged. Not a problem anymore. Just do a little twist of the steering lock and ta-da! We have ignition. Let's do that again. I won't engage the steering lock. I just did that just to show that, not to freak out like I did the first time when the steering wheel lock engaged after I fixed it. It's like, oh no, it was just working. No, it works. Just remember, at least with this, you've got to, in my experience, you got to push it in a little bit harder than you did before. But beyond that, it just works. So I'm very grateful for the user, I believe the name Ed and Becca on Focal Jet, on the Focal Jet forums. Came up with a solution that's pretty elegant and doesn't involve a whole lot of time. I've been working on this for a few hours, but most of that was spent trying to get that stupid clip off. and the researching solutions. So I hope this helps somebody. They don't have to spend as much time on this as I did. Anyway, that's it.